Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella and Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato. We, of course, are DLLS Mavs. I really appreciate you joining us here live on DLLS Sports. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel while you are here. Our emergency pod today brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed. And unfortunately, we have some breaking bad news, if you will, when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks. Is coming from ESPN's Tim McMahon and Shams Charania. Dallas Mavericks star Kyrie Irving has a bulging disc in his back and is expected to miss at least 1 to 2 weeks. There is optimism that treatment over the coming days will provide a return to play target date for the Mavericks star, who, of course, 32 years of age in his 14th season in the NBA. The Mavericks on the first night of a back-to-back tonight as they take on the Memphis Grizzlies before they welcome in LeBron James and company and the Los Angeles Lakers tomorrow night. And gentlemen, obviously it has been a difficult season for this team, a team that started 5-7, ripped off 14 of 17, now is trying to avoid a 5-game losing streak tonight when they take on Memphis. And Bobby, they'll have to start, and they'll have to do it without Kyrie Irving here starting tonight and for the next potentially 1 to 2 weeks here.
Yeah, Kevin, I would just like to start this conversation off with a quote from philosopher Albert Camus. Quote, "If we believe in nothing, if nothing has any meaning, and if we can affirm no values whatsoever, then everything is possible and nothing has any importance." Thank you.
Absurdism. We've gotten to the point of absurdism. Not even like you're skipping past the nihilism phase and you're just straight to everything has meaning if we assign it to, assign value to it. I think Dallas has to come to terms with the fact they're going to be a play-in team. I think that is probably where this news leaves us. And I don't think if Dallas gets Kyrie and Luka back in the month of February, Kyrie hopefully sooner, Luka hopefully not much past the start of February, but you never know. Maybe it takes until after the All-Star break. But if this team is fully healthy after the All-Star break, I don't think there's any scenario where they're going to completely miss the play-in. That makes it a much tougher path. That's not the path that Dallas set out to have this season. It's not where anybody would have wanted them to be. But the play-in tournament, it's kind of a safety net for situations exactly like this. And at least there's that. At least Dallas has the reassurance that this is not going to be, just because they lose, drop all these games due to catastrophic injuries because of what feels like a cursed season. They still have that safety net that I do think that they, nobody's ruling that out for them. And as long as everything works after the All-Star break, that's going to work out for them. It's just that's not a good situation to be in. And, nobody would have signed up for this. Nothing about it seemed like it was headed that direction. As Joe in the comments say, like it's setting up a first-round series against the Thunder, perhaps.
Oh, my God.
Which, not what you want. But, hey, like, if that's your chance to prove yourself, if that's how the season plays out, that's sure better than missing the playoffs. As things stand right now, even with this bad news, I am not preparing or prepping the idea that Dallas is going to miss the play-in.
Well,
They're still going to make it there.
Here's the deal. So their next, let's go over their next 2 weeks. You got a back-to-back Grizzlies and Lakers. You got to play the Nuggets twice. You got the Pelicans second night of a back-to-back. Somewhere in there is a game against Portland, who just beat you with Kyrie. You play OKC. That's the next 2 weeks. So if Kyrie's back within 2 weeks, he's just missing those games. But as a knower of multiple people that have dealt with bulging discs in their past, I can tell you that 2 weeks is pretty optimistic.
That's super optimistic.
Yeah. And so let's just say it's 3 weeks. Then he's missing games at Charlotte versus the Wolves, at OKC versus Boston. There's a really I don't want to be a doomer. But I have to own up to what I said, Kevin, on the last post-game show. Remember, I looked at you and I said, they're probably going to lose almost every single game, if not every game they play without Luka and Kyrie, because they're just not – it's really hard to win without your two best players. There aren't a lot of wins over the next 2 weeks. There just aren't unless guys are able to step up bigly. And so, like, I guess if we want to take the optimistic slant, it's all right, PJ Washington, Naji Marshall, Klay Thompson, Dereck Lively, Daniel Gafford, Quentin Grimes. Like, you are now the what's the word? I forget what the word is, but like you're going to decide how the season goes. Like, do you want to be a playing team or do you want to be a playoff team? Because if you want to be a playoff team, I'm going to need to see something.
Yeah, because right now, they're holding on to the sixth spot right now in the West at 20 and 15 and slipping fast, Tim.
I mean, this is the roster they built, a roster that was meant to do more with Luka and Kyrie on the court. But they built the best roster. I stand by this. This is the best roster of the Luka era. And when I look at the schedule and I see games like, as you were laying out, Bobby, but versus Portland, at Charlotte, and that's with 2 days of rest going into it. I see, versus Washington, at Detroit. Detroit's way better this season. All these teams are good, competent NBA basketball teams. But there is an onus in the locker room. There is a need for them to step up and win a few of those games. Not every single one. You don't have to be perfect. You are not expected to replicate this team's ceiling with their two best players on the court. But if this team is healthy, if Dereck Lively, PJ Washington, Quentin Grimes, if those three, plus a few more key role players, if Naji Marshall, if those players are out there, I do think they're good enough to get wins against teams like that. You don't have to win every single one of those games, but every time there is a win that you need. And unfortunately, at this point, when those games come up, there are wins you need. You need to be winning more of them than you aren't. That like you said, Bobby, that's going to dictate a lot. Another player would help a lot, and we don't really know where he is at the point of his return and rehab, but it's Dante Exum. Last season, when Dante Exum was on the court and Luka and Kyrie were not, Dallas still maintained a 120 offensive rating. Ooh. Pretty much the best offense in the league. Now, you can't compare those one-to-one. Dante Exum, especially after, he hasn't played all season, isn't going to come back and immediately make you a top 5 offense in the NBA. A lot of the times that, a lot of those minutes and those possessions that he was accumulating those stats, there were games where at least Luka or Kyrie were playing. He did a lot of that in last December where Kyrie was out, but Luka was still, taking the hardest matchups and Dante Exum was able to play against bench players and, play sparingly. But that's important. That stands out to me, the fact that Dante Exum, when he's out there, Dallas not only had a competent offense, but a very good offense. The sooner they get him back, the better. There's still really no exact update. As far as we know, he's not using his right hand yet, the one he had wrist surgery on. But as soon as he's back on the court, as soon as he's starting to do that, like the countdown starts to when he can actually like fully rejoin the team on the basketball court in an NBA game, because I think that's really important. And that, the sooner he gets back, or if he gets back soon, that could be a measure of saving grace for this season and for this team's ability to get wins, desperately needed wins against the bottom half of the NBA.
Even when he's back, though, like, again, not to return to Duberism. All right, I got my Camus out. I'm ready I'm coping now. I'm full on coping. I'm just huffing copium. The Mavs are now, like, earlier in the Luka era, it was KP, and then it was Jalen Brunson, and to a degree Spencer Dinwiddie, and then it became Kyrie Irving. Even whenever Luka was out, or even whenever one of those other guys was out, and the Mavs still had Luka healthy, a lot of the times, not every night, but a lot of the times, the Mavs can make an argument that they still have the best player on the floor, or one of the top 2, maybe even 2 of the top 3. For a lot of these games, Lively. They're not going to have, in most of these games, they're not going to have one of the 2 best players on the floor, or maybe even one of the top 3 players on the floor. And it's really, really tough to win a game whenever that's the case. It's just really, really tough to do that. So I'm not saying this to scare all of you. Like, trust me, I'm going through it myself. Okay. But they're facing a tall task. It might only be 8 games, but it might be 15 games. They got 17 games this month. All right.
Yeah.
And Luka's not playing in any of them. And Kyrie, hopefully will, but I don't know about that either. That's a huge chunk of season. 17 games. If you go 2-15, you can start looking for April flight trips. If you go 8-9, then plan the parade route, because that means guys are stepping up. So like it's going one of two ways. There's really no in between. You're either doing this or you're not.
And you started to mention something that I think is important here, because you've got 17 games, throughout the rest of this month or into the beginning of February, but you got 21 games in total until the All-Star break. And the idea here is that the optimistic timeline is 1 to 2 weeks. Back injuries are tricky. You never know how well or unwell, I should say, if that's a word, things could go when it comes to dealing with an injury like this. So to try to keep it all in perspective, because I'm not going to be capture the flag guy. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be the guy that looks and says, hey, maybe the basketball guys are trying to send a sign to the Mavericks about what's happening this year, and maybe they might need to take a hint. I'm not going to be that guy today. There's still plenty of season left. But when you start Tim, you mentioned a little bit earlier, when guys start to play and come back, things may start to look better, but does that better translate into wins? Because that's the name of the game here. Win or you're going to lose. They may look better on the floor, but are those things looking better in terms of translating into wins? Because if it doesn't, then we have to have an entirely different conversation by the time we get to end of January, beginning of February, as we approach the All-Star break here.
I mean, you find out this is what this roster is supposed to be capable of, and it's the best suited roster to do it. Like, at some point, it just becomes about process. Like, the process that brought them here, this roster was not built to make up for the absences of Luka and Kyrie, just like any roster is not built to make up for both of their top players being out. There's not a single roster in the NBA that's built that way. But that's why I said at the start that Dallas has to accept the fact that they're going to be a play-in team. And in that scenario, when you just accept that, when you say you're going to be the 8th, 9th, 10th team in the Western Conference standings, that allows you to say, okay, we have to prioritize. Everybody who's available has to prioritize these games that are winnable against the bottom half of the NBA. It allows you to say, Kyrie Irving, you are not stepping on the court until we are as sure as we can be that this back injury is not going to affect you the rest of the season. That's not something you can promise, but it's also at the same time not something where you rush him back for no reason. There is no rushing back in this scenario. This is a play-in team. This has, like, everybody around the team has to come to grips with the fact this is a play-in team. That is the right thing to do for this NBA season for the Dallas Mavericks. And then you let everything fall where it does. If Luka needs to miss until after the All-Star break, if Kyrie needs to miss until after the All-Star break, obviously the reporting, the timeline that we have right now, the understanding is not that he's going to miss even close to that long, but you can't know with the back injury. You have to accept that. And so it also gives a motivation, a reasoning, and understanding to the players when they go up against a Washington team, a Portland team, that they are responsible for going and making the playoffs. And, the other thing that has to be addressed, and it's a little too soon to really, parse this, is Dallas going to go make a trade move, and I don't think they're going to make a trade for a guard. That doesn't make any sense. That is not, you don't make a season saving move. You make a move that makes you better when you're healthy, but maybe if you had another player in the front court, say, that would also help you in this interim period without those 2-star guards. But I don't think there's any scenario, where they make anything other than like a very low risk move for an NBA player. Did you just print that?
No. Shout out to GM Ben. Yes, this is fine. Everything's fine. Everything is absolutely fine.
Well, I about ran my point. You go ahead.
Well, I mean,
here, can I jump in real quick, KG?
Yeah.
Without a dog meme, I'll do the human version of this is fine. First off, I'm not even in the shadows. I'm in a well-lit office. All right. Don't worry about my,
don't reveal our secret lair.
Oh, that's right. So, this year when Luka and Kyrie are on the floor, Mavs +9. When just Luka and no Kyrie, Mavs +9. When just Kyrie, no Luka, Mavs +3. When Kyrie and Luka are both off the floor, the Mavs offensive rating is 107, which is 15 points per 100 possessions worse than when they're both on the floor. 107, for reference, would rank 28th in the league. And that's a slightly juiced number because it's from PBP stats, which is their numbers are a little higher than the NBA. So the Mavs are more like the 29th best offense in the league. Now, if you say, okay, well, without Kyrie and Luka, essentially they would have a better defense because those two guys are on their best day. Like, average to maybe slightly above average defenders. But the Mavs' defensive rating is only 1.5 points better whenever they're both off than it is when they're on. So the Mavs have to make up 13 points of offense in terms of net rating. And Tim, if you're talking about trying to make a trade, like trying to bring in a guy that could help, that could complement Luka and Kyrie, but also help you stay afloat in the meantime, I just don't see if that player exists, because that kind of guy needs to generate offense. Like, they have to be able to score, and
I think the likeliest scenario is that these injuries causes Dallas to stand pat.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, or get a head start on the summer. I mean, like, if these guys aren't playing, dude, I got news for you, folks. If these guys don't play until February, the Mavs are not at play-in. Like, they're not going to be in the play-in. They're 4 games ahead of 13th right now. Like, they're not good. They're not going to be around. So
I don't know, man. You get them back healthy in early February.
Then you have to go undefeated.
Yeah, you're basically asking this team.
Yeah, you just got to get back here.
They could do it again.
You just got to get back here.
Same thing.
You just got to get back here, man.
You just got to sneak in the back door. You're fine.
See, but to that point, though, honestly, like, if let's just say again, worst case scenario that you don't see either one of these players until after the All-Star break, the amount of pressure that puts on this team to make that kind of run. I mean, in their last meaningful games last year, because they punted on the last 2 because they couldn't get any better than the 5th seed, they went 16-2. Like, that's about as good as you can do to get to the position that they got to, and obviously made the run to the finals. But then to compound that pressure with the amount of losses that they could be taking in the span without Luka and Kyrie, and then to ask this team to do it again is a very tall order. I'm not saying it's impossible, because obviously it can be done, but to ask a team to do something like this 2 years in a row, and then Kyrie Irving already playing nearly 36 minutes a night, the amount of time, energy, and usage between Luka and Kyrie to get them to that point will be a tall order. And then if you want to have the conversation about playing capture the flag and what is a loaded draft class in 2025, then okay, we might have that conversation at that point. Again, I'm not ready to go there necessarily yet, but this is just a realistic kind of timeline and what this looks like from their schedule, also to the amount of time, energy, and usage is going to take to get them to a top 6 seed, in the Western Conference, even if that's still a potential for them to even get to.
I mean, I guess the question is, like, once Cooper's on the team, does PJ come off the bench, or are you sliding him down to the 3?
It wouldn't be a tanking thing, though, because there's just so many teams that have already there are so many teams that are not going to win as many games as the Mavs have already won. So,
yes. Like, there are teams that have already raced to the bottom quite quickly already.
The Mavs could go, they've played 35 games. They could go 0-47 the rest of the season and still get, like, the 8th pick. Like, there are a lot of awful teams in the league. They just all happen to play in the other conference.
Sure.
So that's not really an option either. I mean, honestly, you got to try and win games. You just have to try and win games. And I mean, I know, Tim, the other night you were making the case on the show. It was kind of like the Hopium case of, like, when they're healthy, they've won 80% of their games. So it stands to reason that when Luka comes back, they could win 80%. And, like, it's true. It is true. But that means you better win 80%. And now you might have to win 85% just to maybe be the 10 seed, just to play OKC if you go 2-0 on the road. Like, oh boy. So it's a really, really precarious situation. Your margin for error was already this thin, and now it's non-existent. Now you have a negative margin for error. Like, you have to hope that Phoenix combusts. You have to hope that the Kings winning 4 in a row is a mirage. You have to hope that Kawhi just submarines the Clippers this season. And even then, that still puts you at 9th or 10th. It's going to be really, really hard.
You've got 26 games after the All-Star break. If everybody's healthy and you still win at an 80% clip, that's 20 or 21 wins. Right now, Dallas has 20 wins. So the idea is, if everything's going to be fine after the All-Star break, if that's maybe not, it's not even you have to plan for that. If you're Dallas looking at the next 6 weeks, next 5 weeks before the All-Star break, you have to plan, you have to prepare. You have to approach these next 5 weeks as if you're going to be fully healthy after the All-Star break, and everything will be better then. Last season, as Joe in the comments points out, the 10th seed won 46 games. There are like I said, 26 games after the All-Star break. So you have to think that you're going to win 80% of them. So that's 20, let's say optimistically 21 games. You have to win 5 games over the next 6 weeks with maybe Luka coming back at the very end, maybe Kyrie. But if you look at the schedule, that's doable. You know, it's doable, but it's a very tight.
But the worry, and I don't even want to put more doubt because like I'm already at my wit's end. But you're going to be asking Clay to do more. You're going to be asking PJ to do more. You're going to be asking Naji to do more, and Naji's already missed half the season or whatever. You're going to be asking Dereck Lively to do more, and he's already missed a ton of games. And Gafford has been struggling lately, and it's like, you know, Dinwiddie, you're already maxing Dinwiddie out right now.
And low key, there's no guarantee that when 77 comes back, that he's going to remain healthy for the remainder of the season too.
I mean, like a back can come, like a calf can betray you quickly. You know?
Yeah, and
I'm more worried about Kyrie's back than Luka's calf.
No,
but,
for sure. Yeah,
both are serious. Yeah.
And you know, and that's so everybody on the team that's healthy right now is going to be playing more minutes and doing more with the ball and assuming more responsibility. That's not just physical load, that's mental load, emotional load, psychological load. And they're probably going to lose a lot of games, and that's going to take a toll. That's going to take its own toll, you know. And it's just really tough. I think,
but that's why right now you have to say we're a play-in team, and it's on you guys. Like the emotional load, like that's the way you frame it in the locker room right now, is saying we have to hit this number, and it's 5 more wins. You got to get to 25, 26 wins by the All-Star break, and you look at everybody in the locker room and you say, this is on you guys. We're not expecting you to win like we used to win, but you know what team we are when Luka and Kyrie are out there. This is what you have to do for Luka and Kyrie. That changes the equation to an extent. That changes like the mental framework that the rest of the locker room, that the rest of these role players have about the season. And that's why right now, that's why I led off the show saying this. This is a play-in team. Get it through everybody's head right now and say, you have to go like Luka and Kyrie do so much for you. This is your chance to do it for them. And this is our path there. And you lay out all the stakes. And I think I agree. Losing sucks and it can have an effect on things. But that's why you have to accept that right now. That's why it was the first thing I said, because this is the mental perspective everybody within the Dallas organization has to have right now.
Yeah, there can't be defeat. You know wins are coming. You just have to do something. You know that the Rohirrim are going to come down that mountainside led by Gandalf at first light on the 5th day. You just have to hold the night. Can you hold the night against what can man do against such reckless hate? You have to just not let them explode the wall first, and then you have to hold the night.
And Memphis might be giving them that gift tonight because no John Morant, no Desmond Bane, no Marcus Smart. I mean, no Santi Aldama, who's been a Mavericks killer. Like the Grizzlies are going through it themselves from an injury standpoint. So you might get that gift in the form of a win potentially tonight. When the Mavericks tip off at 7 p.m. and they take on the Memphis Grizzlies. But obviously, you've got to start putting W's in the win column now, because in order to get yourself into a decent position by the time you hit to the All-Star break, games like tonight, for example, are ones that you could potentially get yourself in position to get even without Luka Dončić and Kyrie Irving. But that is the breaking news when it comes to these Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving experiencing a bulging disc in his back, expected to miss at least 1 to 2 weeks, according to ESPN's Shams Charania and Tim McMahon. Again, hopefully with treatment, they can provide a return to play date target for him to get him back on the floor. The Mavericks begin a stretch where they are playing 4 of their next 5 games at home. They've got a road game against Memphis before they take on the Lakers, Portland, and then Denver twice when they play Denver on the 12th and the 14th of January. So the Mavericks were on the road tonight, but then come home for 4 straight games after that. They're on the first night of a back-to-back with Memphis and then the Lakers tomorrow. We will have our pregame show tonight at 6:30 p.m. on DLLS.
You're going to bring some bleach to the studio, Kevin?
Do I need to? Is it to cleanse what's going on? That meme. I was like, what? Look, you already know I'm going through it when it comes to my Cowboys already and what's going on over the next week and a half on how they're going to string this out with Mike McCarthy. So between that and now this, yeah, I'm already going through it. So I might need some by the time we get done with tonight's show. But we want you to tune in with us tonight at 6:30 p.m. for the DLLS Mavs pregame show. We'll have our post-game show 15 minutes afterwards as well. More, of course, on this when it comes to the Mavericks and their injured superstar and Luka Dončić and, of course, Kyrie Irving. And we'll go all over that after tonight's game as well. We really appreciate you joining us here on DLLS Sports for the DLLS Mavs Emergency Podcast. You can find Tim on X at Tim_Cato. You can find Bobby on X at Bobby Curl. You can find me there at Kevin Gray Sports. We'll talk to you later on tonight for the DLLS Mavs pregame show at 6:30 p.m. Y'all be good. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.